G'day, Dave here, and we're going to be looking at Ecclesiastes chapter 7 from verse 13. I've been looking at the Bible now for, well, over 50 years. Since I could read, I've been reading parts of the Bible or having them read to me. I've been preaching on the scriptures. I've had them preached to me. I've studied the Bible and I've been in Bible studies. And over the years, I've discovered a great many things, all sorts of exciting things about God, sometimes disappointing things about myself, and yet exciting things about what God has done for me, particularly when the good news of Jesus became very real to me. But one of the things I've discovered too is that the more you read of Scripture, the more you understand Scripture, the more it informs itself. And so it's possible to read a part of the Bible and then read another part, and it informs the part that you've just read. Or to go back and read something over again and discover that, oh, you didn't really understand that as well as you could have. And I'm having this experience with this passage today. In fact, I think that I've probably claimed too much for myself in something that I've done, and I'll point that out from this part of the Bible. So have a look with me in verse 13. It says, "Consider what God has done. Who can straighten what he has made crooked? When times are good, be happy. But when times are bad, consider this, God has made the one as well as the other. Therefore, no one can discover anything about their future." Let me explain. It's talking about the fact that some things in life just aren't the way that we would wish them to be. I mean, they're crooked. It doesn't mean they're evil or anything. They're just kind of going badly. There are circumstances in life that aren't the way that we want them to be. Sometimes things go well for us. You know, the sun's shining, it's a beautiful day, we've got great relationships, there's food on the table, money in the bank, and holidays on the horizon, and things are terrific. But other times, you know, it's a cold day, it's icy, and we're out of sorts, and we're a bit depressed and anxious, and relationships are going badly, and we're struggling to make ends meet, and hey, we're out of work. You see, some things can be crooked, some things can be straight. I think that's what he's talking about. But what he has to say here is that God has made the one and God has made the other. And there's a danger that we can attribute good things to God and bad things to something else. And so you end up with this idea that when good things or blessed things happen, God is at work. But if something bad was to happen, like a person getting sick or having a car accident or failing an exam or losing a job, then God couldn't possibly be involved in that. But the scriptures make it very clear, both here in Ecclesiastes and in other parts of the Bible, that God has made the one as well as the other. Now, where has this challenged me? Well, let me explain. People have often asked me over the last few years, if I had my time again, would I have cancer? And it's an interesting question. I usually say something like, well, I wouldn't want to miss out on the lessons that I've learned. I've had incredible wealth of experience that's come about through having cancer. But as for cancer itself, no, I wouldn't. And certainly as for chemotherapy, no way. But I think there's an arrogance in that. And this verse is helping me to see that. See, we can be saying, or I can be saying in these circumstances, that I could have come up with a better process to get a better outcome in my life. That somehow or other, by implication, God hasn't done things as well as he could have. And surely there's a better way. If I wasn't to have cancer, but I could learn the lessons anyway, or be given these lessons, then that would be a better solution. Trouble is, I'm not God. Trouble is, I can't see the big picture. I don't know what God's doing, and God is at work in all things for our good. It's interesting, Jesus himself faced this issue. You can read the account of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he is there on the night when he's betrayed, and he's praying to God his Father. He's in agony as he prays, the very graphic account. He's praying that if there's any other way that God might take the cup from him, the cup being a symbol of his judgment. And as Jesus prays, he says, "But not my will, but yours be done." You see, Jesus is in effect asking God to straighten that which is crooked. But God's answer is no, because God knows that the way to bring about the ultimate good is for Jesus to experience that horrific crookedness of the cross, to actually go to his death, bearing God's punishment for sin, for you and for me. You see, God is able to work through the bad as well as through the good. And it's a real trap for us to keep saying, well, if only, if only, if only. Read on with me to verse 15. In this meaningless life of mine, I've seen both of these things, the righteous perishing in their righteousness and the wicked living long in their wickedness. Do not be over righteous, neither be over wise. Why destroy yourself? Do not be over wicked, and do not be a fool. Why die before your time? It's good to grasp the one and not let go of the other. Whoever fears God will avoid all extremes. Now, at first glance, this might appear to be a little cynical. You see, if you can't change things, if you can't make sense of life, if crooked things are there and you can't do anything about it, then who cares? No point in being overly righteous or overly wise, no point in being overly wicked either. It can sound a little cynical, but I don't think that's the author's point. I suspect that, and apparently the Hebrew verbs can actually bear the weight of this. That it's not talking about being overly righteous, as in super, super, super duper righteous, or overly wise, very, very super wise, because it's ultimately not possible to be overly righteous or over wise. But perhaps it's talking about a self-righteousness and a wisdom in our own eyes, and warning against that, to think that we know better than God. That's just a foolishness. And so too, it's foolishness to think that it doesn't matter how you live. If you can't change anything, then surely fatalism. You may as well just do evil. No, that's just as dangerous. Dangerous for the religious person to think that they are better than they really are. Dangerous for the non-religious or the secular person, the one who is not interested in pleasing God, to think it doesn't matter how they live. No, both these things truly matter. One day we will give an account. The thing is, self-righteousness and wickedness are two sides of the same coin, pushing God aside, thinking that we can live as we please. And the scriptures warn us against that. And they point us to the way forward. There's a refrain that we're going to hear more of in Ecclesiastes as we read on. It's the fear of the Lord, or the fear of God. And this is how verse 18 finishes. Whoever fears God will avoid all extremes. You see, the way forward, the way to true wisdom, is by acknowledging who God is, that he is God, and to fear him, not ultimately a fear that leads to hiding from God, but a fear that leads us to run to God, because he's the one who shows mercy. Thank you.